Hey fellow Vault Dwellers, it's Angry Turtle and coming back today to armor penetration topic. We will do a deep dive, but I will do my best to make it as simple for you as possible to determine how much you actually need in game. I will give you a very good rule of thumb when determining if you want or if you don't want to use anti-armor on your weapons. I will cover some exceptions as well, but mainly the basics, as those are important. You can apply them to everything. Now, if you are not familiar with this graph, that's the damage calculation curve that Fallout 76 and Fallout 4 is using. As you can see, Fallout 4 damage calculation. There are some different rules in Fallout 4. Not everything is the same, but this curve is the same. So that's what's important. You can see the damage being done to enemy. In this case scenario, weapon with 30 damage hitting an enemy, the armor is going up. And what interests us is this flat part. So for very low amount of armor compared to damage you are doing, the armor is not resisting any damage from your weapon. And that's what's the most interesting. We'll let it be. We'll go for practice. How does it affect you and how it actually works? First, we'll need to see enemy armor. Currently, we need to equip awareness for that. From March update, it will not be needed. Like this card will not be required to see enemy resistances in VATS. Just high perception will do that for you. But for now, we need awareness equipped. And a very important side note, I did unequip intentionally, taking one for the team. As both perks, taking one for the team and other one called follow through, so taking one for the team and follow through, this one will bug out displayed values of enemy armor. So if you want to see a real ones, you cannot use those perks or you will not know what is the actual resistance on enemy. I unequip anything that could fluctuate our damage numbers, so it will be easier for showcase. Your build, of course, supposed to include everything you need. That's just for testing purposes. Some cards like Adrenaline, Tenderizer have been taken out for the testing and explanation purposes. So what's the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is that you take a look on enemy armor and multiply it by 6 to determine if you need or not need armor penetration, if you need to increase it. Okay, so for a start, we switch to our Vampire, 50 cal, and we did unequip Stabilize, so we don't have armor penetration in there. So full armor of Rebel 100 Super Mutant is 67. This means in order to achieve full damage without any armor penetration, I would need approximately 67 by 6, 402 damage per hit. And it doesn't matter what the damage is displayed on weapon card. That's not the damage we are going by. The damage we are going by is impact damage. So if you have your settings and numbers in settings on, you will see impact damage. That's 52. Way below 400. I would benefit from regular shots to the torso to be higher. But it does count if I use criticals or all other bonuses. So critical is already 106, still below 400. If I go for the head, 81, still below. If I go for the head and critical, 194, still below. So in this particular case scenario, I would benefit greatly with anti-armor. How much will I benefit by equipping anti-armor weapon? It's vary depending on the build, but it is equivalent if you would translate it into like Bloodied effect, Aristocrat effect bonus. So anti-armor, when it works, when the rule of thumb is applied and answer is yes, you can benefit from anti-armor, you will get between 50 to 120% bonus damage equivalents from anti-armor. And equivalents, I'm talking about effects like Furious, that is 45, and so on, because that's increasing base damage, and anti-armor changing the calculation of enemy armor, so a little bit different, but the result is what matters. So now, again, you don't need to manually count for armor piercing effects, as now when I inspect the Super Mutant, I can see a new value. So now we go by 33. If we multiply 33 by 6, answer it 198. So for the torso, I have below. If I go for critical, still below, 136. So for the torso shots, I would benefit from adding more anti-armor effects. Now, for the headshots, without critical, I have 105. With the critical, 213. So with the critical, I'm already at the threshold that more will not be better. So in case of the critical, by the rule of thumb, I would not improve by adding more anti-armor, but we do add to see what's gonna happen. So we add even more anti-armor by adding stabilized effect. So adding stabilized effect. And now, let's see, resistance of enemy is 18. So we calculate for this level, 18 multiplied by 6, 108. So regular shot to the torso will benefit from adding even more armor piercing, if that would be possible. With the critical, it's 160, so way above. So critical, we already will not benefit from any more. For the headshots, we have 140, so regular headshot will not benefit from adding more critical. 230, so will not benefit anymore either. I need to heal as my adrenaline is kicking, so just a comparison. Critical now, 213. If you remember, we had the same critical of 213 before adding stabilized. So in this case scenario, stabilized is putting us in the zone that doesn't benefit criticals any more than anti-armor on the weapon alone. And other way around, you can use this calculation, like maybe I don't need anti-armor then. If you rely on your criticals using weapon without anti-armor, so let's do this exercise with vampire weapon. This vampire 50 cal. This time around, no anti-armor on the weapon, so we have new value again. 36 is the value now. 36 multiplied by 6 is 216. If we achieve 216, then anti-armor will not help. So let's see to the torso. 65 regular anti-armor would help. Critical 131 anti-armor would help. But this 50 cal has additional bonus for the weak spots. So let's see, with the weak spot bonus is 131, a little bit below. So we would still benefit on regular headshots, in this case scenario with anti-armor. For the critical, 240. That's above, will not benefit anymore by adding anti-armor in case of the critical shot. I'm doing my best to explain it, so I hope by this point you know how to calculate. Whatever your build is and whatever your weapon is, take a note of those damage numbers, inspect enemy in VATS, multiply corresponding damage resistance by 6 to see if you are hitting the full damage potential of the weapon. 216 for those super mutants with stabilized equip. If I'm hitting 216 or above, I will not benefit from adding anti-armor for those particular shots. Don't forget, it's per shot basis. It's not per weapon, it's per shot. Criticals, regular shots, weak spot shots, unit situation per shot. So some shots may benefit from adding more anti-armor, like non-criticals to the head, when in the same time, criticals to the head would not benefit anymore from adding anti-armor. So even though normally I would say anti-armor may add to my weapon like 50% bonus damage, but only every other shot, so that's effectively 25% for this case scenario when headshot critical cannot benefit, but regular headshot can still benefit and put us at full damage. So that's the rule of thumb. Multiply enemy armor by 6 and compare to the damage you're doing. Damage you are doing is higher, adding more anti-armor will do nothing. Damage is lower, adding more anti-armor will help better than adding something like aristocrats or so on your prefix. Or troubleshooters is 50%. Now, what if damage is mixed? So to simplify, unfortunately, you will see a combined damage from both. ballistic, and energy. So in case of combined but equal damage, you inspect enemy, see whatever is higher on enemy, ballistic resistance or energy. If energy is higher, multiply energy damage by 12 and then compare to the damage done by a weapon. So just multiply resistance twice as much and then you will see the higher one. And then you will see if you benefit from more anti-armor or not. As you may already tell, weapons that combine two types of damage need to achieve way higher damage per hit to achieve the point when anti-armor is not beneficial. That's why anti-armor is usually beneficial for quite a long time on weapons that do combine different damage types. All that matters is the damage that displayed per hit, the damage numbers that are shown. Yes, they're not always 100% accurate. That's why I'm saying it's a rule of thumb. It's not exact calculation. If you want exact pinpoint calculation, you will need to go by the damage calculator and put all the values yourself in. It's a very complicated process, and it's even more likely you will make a mistake than going by the rule of thumb. That's why I figure out this will be the most helpful. What else you should know, all type of dot effects are not subject of anti-armor. So let's say you have anti-armor weapon. If there would be any dot, so it's damage over time is not affected at all by anti-armor. Anti-armor effects are always bad, therefore, for damage over time effects, as they do nothing for those. In case of bosses like Snake in the final fight in the raid, you apply the same rule. If you are targeting the eye, take a look how much damage you are doing per shot to this particular eye. Most likely because how huge is the damage multiplier in that final fight, you will not need anymore. There is one more exception and problem when you have multi-projectile weapons. As damage number you see, you will need to multiply by amount of projectiles, as those are calculated together, not separate. That's important for shotguns and so on. If you shoot this dragon in VATS, you will see one damage number. Let me show you that. If I shoot this dragon in VATS, I will see one damage number. But to figure out how much it's doing, like 108, those are actually four numbers of 108. So my actual damage is 432. So I need to take that for the calculation, 432, and not 108. So that's for multi-projectile, single damage type weapons. That's how we go in the calculation for that. Any questions? I know it sounds like a math class at this point. I hope the rule of thumb is simple enough for you. I know it may be a little bit complicated topic, but I want to give you a correct answer so you can know how to apply it. So again, in case of Holy Fire, anti-armor is benefiting me in case of fire damage, and in case of fire damage, of course, you multiply by 6 a fire resistance on the enemy, but about the dot portion, fire resistance will be the default, not what you see. What you see when you inspect enemy, anti-armor is applied, so when you target in VATS, the super mutant fire resistance will apply the armor piercing bonus from the weapon and the bonus from stabilized. But for the purpose of dot damage calculation that game is doing behind the scenes, it will use a default super mutant fire resistance, not reduced by your anti-armor effects. That's why it doesn't work. For the purpose of on-hit calculation, you go the same. So the rule of thumb is multiply by 6. So let's see in this case scenario. Headshots, this is a fire resistance of 20. I'm doing 174. So easy, 120 or above, I don't need anymore, so I'm overshooting. Amount of anti-armor I have on the Holy Fire is already more than enough. I probably don't even need it. In case of the torso shot, when there is 110, then that just around. For the torso shots, it's helping me a lot to have anti-armor on this Flamer. For all other type of shots, It doesn't, but for the torso shot, it does. You can see different numbers. Whenever numbers are 120 or above, I'm at optimal range. Whenever it's way above 120, I'm overshooting with amount of anti-armor I have on this Holy Fire. Whenever damage numbers are below 120, I don't have enough anti-armor. And that, hopefully, answers all the questions you could possibly have about anti-armor or not. This is how it works. The simple rule of thumb: multiply resistance by 6 compared to the damage you are doing. And you either golden or you can benefit from more anti-armor. If you are greatly overshooting, damage is much higher than what you calculated, you probably have even too much anti-armor and some of it is just wasted. It's not like too much will harm you, just not giving any additional benefits. And that being said, this is everything for this video. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer. And now, thank you all for watching and see you all in the next one.